Millennials have done the work that many of the older generations did not do, were not willing to do, and most importantly, became aware much quicker than the older generation did. Um, of course, the Clifton Powell conversation is popular and it's doing its thing. And I've gotten some comments from men, of course, continuing to make excuses and parrot all of the things. Now, when I was, and this is years ago, I want to say about probably 8 years ago, I was filming a retreat with a life coach, and I went to she had like a big conference retreat. Kim Coles was a speaker at that retreat. And I remember conducting interviews with the participants that were attending this retreat, all of which were women. The first retreat that she did that I did with her, there was one male participant, and she allowed him to be a part of it. But that room where when I returned to DC, the room where the retreat was happening, this was a room filled with probably about 100, 120, maybe 130 women. There's many points to this. The people that are doing the work, the majority of the people doing the work that are willing to do healing are women. And we see this in multitudes across various platforms of healing and therapeutic modalities. So, bringing up the retreat that I was filming, there was a woman, I'll never forget her. I did an interview with her, and she began speaking. This woman was 72 years old. And she came on there and she said, you know what? I had to learn and I understand that I made mistakes and that I don't know everything, and I'm willing to change. I have to still be willing to change even at this age. And I care so much. She even brought her niece. She paid for her niece's ticket to attend that retreat because she wanted there to be intergenerational healing happening. And so I say that to say, Clifton coming up with these excuses as to why things are the way they are and this, that, and the third, if a woman at that point, she was 72, so right now she'd be 80 years old, my mother's age actually. If she could recognize that there were error in the ways that she grew up, in the ways that she was acting and thinking, and she was doing active work to heal that and grow from that in order to be a better person and to show up best for her family, then why can't this man and many of the other people that are caping for him, why can you not also do the same? Trying that phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that's a bedrock for just excuses to not do something, to not change. Now, circling back to the millennial conversation, I witnessed and learned that my generation was willing to do the work of emotional healing, to do the work of nervous system regulation, and that meant making difficult decisions. Healing means facing and sitting with discomfort. Before you can get out of the uncomfortable situation or seat that you were in, you've got to be aware of that, recognize that, accept that, and then do the work, which continues to be uncomfortable in order to get to a higher vantage, in order to get to a better space. So trying to give somebody grace who's not doing the work is counterproductive. They're not doing the work. It is simply continuing to enable the person to be and remain how they are and make excuses and accept it and basically relying on words as opposed to actions. And we're not doing that. And then to go back to that retreat that I was discussing, the first retreat that I went to, which was actually in Philadelphia, and I filmed that small group intimate retreat that the woman was conducting, and she allowed one man to be a part of that. She had to feel his energy to even see if it was going to be the right space for him to do so. But the fact of the matter is that this man knew that it was a healing retreat, and he also was aware that it was really open to women only, but he was purposeful and wanted to heal. And he was like, I don't care if I'm going to be the only man there. I want to be a part of this, and I want to do the work of healing. And that's where a lot of these guys are lacking. They simply want to make excuses. They simply want to be coddled. They want things to be brushed over and washed over. And it's like, no, you need to be uncomfortable. Otherwise, how are you going to change and grow? Things have shifted in droves because of how society has shifted based on the actions of each generation that continues to come forward. So with Generation X and boomers, there was a bit of emotional awareness that was lacking. Or with Generation X, I feel like there's more so emotional suppression that was adopted from the boomers, and the boomers were coupling that with denial. Whereas Generation X is like they're aware, but they continue to suppress their emotions because they're still living in survival mode. Our millennials, myself, we were like, we're not going to suppress, we're feeling our feelings, we're going to do the work to also heal our feelings and not have to continue to live in this way. So the denial is not a part of the framework any longer. Instead, we are addressing, we're witnessing, we're acknowledging, we are addressing, and we're doing the work to shift and change that. And then Generation Z was like, fuck all of this, none of this shit matters. And because they are aware, because they had aware parents, and they're like, we're not going to be in this whole denial. Now, no generation is perfect. This is not what this is about. But it is to show the progression of change and why so many things are up in arms. Because as these generations progress, it has to shift. There is no alternative. And that's why with everything that is going on, it's a clusterfuck. Trust and believe. But with everything that's going on, it is the signaling that we are witnessing the shift that was inevitable, that needed to come to fruition.